Hi everyone, I think we'll get started. I'm sure there's a couple more joining us shortly. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you're ready for some Thursday drinks. My name is Rachel Boyle. I'm the Executive Director at the New Zealand Chamber of Commerce, and with me today I've got Joseph Barrett, who is a Kiwi and a serial entrepreneur. He's based here in Singapore, and Jason Williams, Creative Director at the spirits company and consultancy Proof & Co. Jason's also a master of gin at Atlas Bar and one of the founders of Witches Gin. And Jason's going to be taking us through the tasting this evening. So to start, Joe's going to share the fascinating story behind Temple Street Cocktails. A bit of background, Joe has founded Mutant Communications, which is a content PR and branding agency. He founded that 8 years ago. And then out of that came his next venture, which was Trouble Brewing. And I'm sure you've all tried a Singapore lager before. So this year, because maybe he wasn't busy enough, he thought another business needed to get off the ground. So Temple Street Cocktails is a ready-to-pour Singapore-made cocktail solution. Just before I hand over to Joe, I'll remind you this session is set up as a meeting, so that all you guys are able to see each other. But we will keep your mics muted just so it doesn't get too chaotic. If you don't want to be seen, do turn your video off. And please use the chat function so that if you've got any questions or you just want to chat during the session. So Joe, over to you and the Temple Street story.
Cool. Thank you very much for the introduction, Rachel. Yeah, sure thing. I guess Temple Street's history is basically the definition of necessity. Is the creator of innovation, and it kind of all sparked last year when during Circuit Breaker. When Circuit Breaker hit, obviously for those that don't know Trouble Brewing, we had to pivot very quickly and build out our e-commerce solution, and that was something that really completely changed the face of the business and how we reached and spoke to consumers, but it also allowed us to see the market in whole different ways than we've ever considered it before, right? So, suddenly we could see we were getting very live, very real feedback from people. We could see what was selling, we could see what wasn't selling, and one of those things that we put on the website during that period was, we're cocktails. We were using another brand at the time, and at one point I think we were moving we were buying like $10,000 or $15,000 a month worth of cocktails to sell through the website. And I was like, well, there's obviously demand here for this, but all the cocktails we were doing were all imported from China. Don't get me wrong, they weren't bad cocktails, but I always felt like they were possible to do better. But I also found as well, like exploring in the local market, there wasn't just anything that kind of fit, that had the scale that we needed to really do it at a level that would be nationwide and distribute across the region, or at a price point that would allow us to really kind of hit that sort of more mass market sort of community as well. So, that was where Jason and I first started speaking about this as an opportunity for us to explore, and we started working on product development way back then. It took obviously a lot longer. I mean, it sounds pretty easy to chuck a few, make a cocktail and put it in a bottle. But also we didn't want it to, the idea behind it has always been that it would be more than just, a lot of restaurants are doing their own cocktails. The idea was it to be quite a separate venture from that. This was like, making it shelf stable so it could sit on a, retail shelf for 6 months or a year. Making sure that you're using, you can get the price point right down, being able to mass produce, make 30, 40, 50,000 units a month to start off with, and then scaling that up. And Jason obviously has all the, the bona fides and the credibility. And for, he's the one that put all the recipes together. And then it was like for the next 6 to 7 months that we worked on actually, he worked on the recipes and made sure that they tasted amazing. And then there was a lot of work on the back end, making sure that we could do those scalable things. And how do we, bring those price points down so we can bring a top tier sort of cocktail, but bring it at an attractive price. So do we need to be buying by 200-litre barrels, 50-litre barrels? Do we need to, how are we going to kind of scale different things? So while still using top-tier ingredients, how are we going to make this into an operation that allows us to sell a cocktail at $11 and still make margin on it? So it's been quite both a creative as well as a big learning process from the production side as well, and yeah, we're really proud of the final product as well. And I'll hand you over to Jason now. He's the actual more interesting one that actually knows how to make them all.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I don't think I'm necessarily the more interesting one, but I'm definitely the cocktail guy. And that's how I came into the picture. Joe and I are friends. I'm a big admirer of his work with Trouble Brewing and Mutant, and my background as well and truly in the bar world, particularly cocktail bars and fine spirits and stuff like that. So Proof and Company, who I work for, we have a distribution business. So we sell spirits and liqueurs, glassware and whatnot. And I head up the consultancy part of the business. So we conceptualize bars and restaurants and beverage programs, and then we help open them for our clients. So we've had projects like Atlas, Manhattan, and many projects around Asia Pacific, and we have our own cocktail bar as well, 28 Hong Kong Street, which is celebrating its 10th birthday in October, which is quite a famous little high energy cocktail bar here in Singapore. And yeah, I have I had a Master of Gin title at Atlas, and then more recently, well, about 2 years ago, we launched Widger's Gin, which is Widge is my nickname, and it's actually got a picture of my face on the bottle randomly, and it's the official gin of the Singapore Sling now in Singapore, and it's listed at many world's 50 best bars and 50 best restaurants. So I'm definitely the cocktail guy, but I also specialize in gin specifically. And yeah, we saw obviously a big trend in bottled cocktails even before the pandemic, but obviously the COVID restrictions and stuff like that expedited this trend. And Joe, being Joe, realized identified an opportunity, and we also saw a gap, I suppose, to use a cliche, in that people really wanted high quality cocktails. They loved classic cocktails, but maybe a little twist on it, which we're going to talk about today, and convenient. So high quality craft ingredients, well made, lots of high production values and love and authenticity, but convenient at the same time. So a lot of bars have pivoted to doing bottled cocktails, and the rise of ready to drink cocktails and other beverage categories have come through. So yeah, I'm proud to be part of this with Joe and the team, and it's a homegrown product using, working with other Singaporean companies and using some of the world's finest spirits and liqueurs. So I'm pretty happy to be a part of it, and pretty happy to be making these for you today. As you can see, I'm sitting at my kitchen table. Usually I'd be behind the bar demonstrating these cocktails and then showing you how easy it is just to kind of pour it out of a bottle. But I thought I'd just sit at home with the current lockdown and whatnot, and show you how we do it at home. And that's what we're going to do today. Sound good? Cool. So the first cocktail, we're going to do 4 today. Then we've got a little treat for you as well. The first cocktail we're going to do is a lesser known classic cocktail. And it kind of highlights some of the principles around Temple Street cocktails. The classic is called a bee's knees. It's a prohibition era cocktail from the Savoy, and it was first published at the Savoy in London, but it's an American cocktail that was purportedly created in Prohibition times in the US to mask the flavor of poorly made gin. I'm sure you've heard of that story before. So they just added some fresh lemon, some honey, and it's a classic gin sour cocktail family. So gin, lemon, honey. The Temple Street twist, because like I said, all of these cocktails are classic cocktails that everybody loves. You've heard of most of them, but we just like to put our own little twist on it, just a nice little accent or a nice little whisper of something different to give it a bit of a little twist. Just like going into a cocktail bar, a lot of bartenders or a lot of bars will have their own little twist on a martini or an old fashioned or a mojito or something. Temple Street's taken the same approach. So the little twist that we've added to that recipe of gin, lemon, and honey is a little bit of lavender bitters. And we use this beautiful craft bitters from the US. I actually forgot in my little intro to say, if you don't have it already, grab yourself 2 glasses like this. It doesn't have to be a martini glass. It doesn't have to be a coupette like this. But if you've got like a small wine glass or a champagne flute, something with a stem so we can be a little bit fancy at home is good for this first cocktail. And also we're going to make an espresso martini as well. And then 2 of these, if you have them, this is a pretty nice little whiskey glass, or what we call an old-fashioned glass, or a double old-fashioned glass. So some kind of rocks glass like that times 2, and 2 stem glasses like that. And ideally, you'd also have some kind of like block ice. So we have these, I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately, but the just rubber molds. It's like a square rubber mold that you can buy off Amazon, or you can buy from a couple of retailers here in Singapore. So we're going to make 2 cocktails that come in a stem glass and 2 cocktails that go into a rocks glass. Honestly, drink it however you want, pour it into whatever glass you want, but we're going to talk around these classic serves and how they're traditionally served and how you can make them at home. But obviously, if you're in the kitchen late at night or during the afternoon, if you're having a rough day at work, pour it into whatever glass you want. It's still going to be delicious. But back to the first cocktail is the bee's knees. So yeah, I'm actually not going to make it from scratch. I'm going to talk you through the ingredients, but I'm going to demonstrate hopefully how easy it is. So I like to, these are shelf stable, but there is some fresh citrus in there. So I like to give it just a bit of a roll, give it a shake. Got the cap. Another little pro tip is keep your glassware chilled as well. So particularly if you're serving cocktails, keep whatever glassware you intend to use in the freezer. So I keep these cocktail glasses in the freezer. These are called Nick and Nora's, otherwise known as a coupe or a coupette, martini glass, cocktail glass, a pony glass. This is called a Nick and Nora, named after a famous movie from the 1920s or 1930s where they drank a lot of martinis. So this is my Nick and Nora glass, or a martini glass. I'll keep my Temple Street cocktail in the fridge or in the freezer, take it out, give it a bit of a shake or a bit of a roll, and I'm just going to dump that straight in. How my camera angles working there? Took a bit of time to set this up for myself on the kitchen table.
That's all good. We've got a great view.
You look
Totally
beautiful.
demolished my lounge room and dining room and living room. My girlfriend's wondering what the hell's going on. The cat's giving me a weird look too. But yeah, this is the first cocktail. Maybe we have a little toast and a little sip, and then I'll quickly talk you through some of the ingredients. Cheers. Here's the first one. It's called a bee's knees, because as I say, this is the bee's knees. Cheers. So I think gin is the base, a little bit floral, a little bit aromatic, dry botanicals like juniper, coriander seed, that kind of stuff, fresh lemon, honey, fair whack of honey, and some lavender bitters, which is really nice. The gin, quickly a little bit about the gin. This is not about me, but it so happens to be the base of this cocktail. This is a gin that was conceptualized and created here in Singapore by Proof and Company, by myself and my colleagues. It's a London dry gin. It's the kind of archetypal form of gin that should go in a lot of these classic cocktails. Dry gin martini, gin and tonic, all were first created with a London dry gin, which is like a Tanqueray or a Beefeater, Bombay Sapphire. They're all London dry gins. I've got my cat coming, doesn't like the bee's knees. So yeah, juniper forward, that's the key ingredient, quite piney, quite citrusy, a little bit woody, but very aromatic. That's the key to any of these classic cocktails like a Negroni, bee's knees, martini, etc., etc. And then, yeah, if you were to make it at home, you would take fresh lemons, and then you have to squeeze them, strain them out, then make a honey syrup. You can't just use honey, so you cut that down with hot water to come up with a honey water. Pretty easy to make cocktail, actually, but we just use high quality ingredients and bottle it into a perfect 100 ml serve. So keep it in the fridge and then just dump it out into the glass. At this rate, we're going to get through these 4 cocktails pretty quickly and get pretty drunk in this 45 minutes, but we've only got 45 minutes, so maybe I should just keep going to the next one, unless we want to do questions or anything like that.
Well, someone's just asked, what defines a London dry gin? Is it the combination of botanicals?
It's the prominence of the one botanical, which is juniper. So the word gin is an evolved word or translation from the word juniper. The juniper berry is a small little dried, air-dried berry that's from an evergreen bush that's native to big swathes of northern hemisphere. But most of the juniper berry comes from Macedonia or northern Italy, and it's characterized by being very floral and aromatic, but also very piney, very resinous, kind of like hops that might go into beer or other resinous kind of raw materials. I like to describe it as a bit citrusy, a little bit woody, like sweet wood, a little bit piney, a little bit kind of like forest floor character. That's the scent of juniper. If you've ever drunk Gordon's gin, that's like a big whack of juniper, and a London dry gin, as well as a bunch of other legal technical specifications like the ABV and how much what other stuff can be added to it. It has to have a big percentage of juniper berry being used in that. So that's what typifies a London dry gin. And Widger's is a London dry gin, but we add heaps of orange. And on a chemical level, orange and lavender go really well. Orange and honey go really well together. Lavender and honey go really well together. So that's why we use this particular gin because the orange goes really well with lemon, honey, lavender, and we kind of create this kind of amalgam of flavors to come up with our lavender bee's knees. And another little pro tip, a lot of people have heard of some of these other cocktails, a Negroni, espresso martini, etc. But if you go into a cocktail bar and order a bee's knees, the bartender will definitely give you some cool points because it's not a very common cocktail, and the bartender will know that you know your drinks if you order something like a bee's knees. So you might get a little bit of extra shots or something like that. Cool.
Joe, I'll just jump in. There's a question for Joe about how long can you keep the cocktails in the fridge once they've been opened?
I mean, once you've cracked it, you'd want to. It's pretty shelf stable now, so you don't need to worry about it spoiling in the next day or so. But you'd want to probably drink it within the next week or so. Yeah, once you've cracked it.
But it lasts a lot longer if you haven't opened it.
Yes, it will last. It's over a year shelf life for anything that's unopened. Yeah.
Cool. So that cocktail, you'll notice I didn't garnish, but I do have a little bit of other garnishing here. So some cocktails like classic, the sour family of cocktails like a daiquiri, a margarita, often don't have a garnish, and I generally don't garnish that one because you want to smell the lavender and the gin on the nose of that particular cocktail. So that's our bee's knees. Next cocktail I'm going to go with is the Negroni. Negroni is a really popular cocktail these days. It's really blown up in popularity probably over the last 5 years, I'd say. People's palates are getting a little bit drier, a little bit more bitter, particularly if they've drunk sweeter drinks when they were younger. Mojitos were really big. Espresso martinis are really big. So people's palates are getting a little bit tartar, a little bit sour, a little bit more bitter. And the Negroni really represents that. The Negroni you can serve straight up, so in like a stemmed cocktail glass or martini glass such as this. Commonly gets served like that in the US particularly, and I think during like the 70s and 80s it got served straight up a lot like that. They also serve it with vodka, which is blasphemous, but the Negroni, the classic Negroni gets served in a classic old-fashioned glass or a rocks glass with some ice, whatever ice you've got, but preferably a kind of rock like that one. The classic proportions for a Negroni, one of the reasons why it's one of the world's greatest cocktails is equal parts. We love equal parts cocktails because it's easy to make. You're not going to forget it. You can batch it up in larger quantities. And then you can also substitute the ingredients really easily to totally change the cocktail. The ingredients for a Negroni is gin, any gin, but we use a London dry gin as per like the old classic recipe. We use an Italian bitter. We use Campari. There's other products. I didn't have a bottle of Campari, but other products like this is Brutto Americano. Aperol is a style of Italian bitter, so you could quite easily substitute Campari for Aperol. And then Italian sweet vermouth, like martini. We use martini, but you could use Cinzano. We've got a bottle of Mancino here. 3 ingredients, equal parts, then people can change it up. We like to put a little twist on it. So again, you can keep this in the freezer because it's all liquor, a little bit of water for dilution. These are all pre-diluted, by the way. So you don't necessarily have to shake, stir, throw, blend, or whatever. They're actually pre-diluted to a very specific recipe. So dilution is really important to bring those ingredients together and to help with the chilling process. But we pre-dilute, put these in your fridge or your freezer, and they're ready to serve. So this one's pre-diluted. We've got 30, 30, 30 in terms of 30 mils for each of those ingredients. Then just over 30 mLs of water. Keep it in the fridge or freezer, and then you're ready to pour out straight away. And having a Negroni this convenient is pretty dangerous, to be honest, because I know at least one person on this call that can drink a few of them. But our twist on the Negroni, so the Temple Street twist, there's a little bit of chocolate in there. So we like to match up the really heavy, rich, bitter orange characteristics that come from the Campari and the Italian sweet vermouth. We like to match up that orange with some dark chocolate liqueur. So we use for Temple Street, we actually use a Swiss dark chocolate liqueur called Tempus Fugit, which is really delicious, and only a tiny little bit actually, just to give it this back note or just this extra little scent of dark chocolate that goes really well with the orange and the gin and the bitterness of that. There's my cocktail there. The garnish for this particular one is whatever you want, but we suggest you serve with an orange twist, which is the classic garnish. Classic garnish might just be a big wedge of orange if you're getting a Negroni in a cafe in Italy. But if you go into a really nice cocktail bar, you get a really nice manicured piece of orange peel. Take an orange, take a fruit knife or a filleting knife, just cut off a little peel, take off the white part, and then pour out your Temple Street cocktail. And then we just want to spritz that little orange twist over the top. And we want to expel the oils from the citrus peel. And what we do is just kind of crimp it or twist it over the top of the glass, roll it over the glass like this, little kind of bartender technique for you, roll it over like so. So you kind of cover the top of the cocktail with this really beautiful aromatic, sweet orange peel scent, just like an orange perfume, and then kind of go like such and then pop it in. That's it. So more time went into the garnish than actually preparing the cocktail. So this is our Negroni. This is the Temple Street Negroni, classic Italian, bitter, sweet, strong, bracing aperitivo cocktail. Gin, sweet vermouth, Campari. We put in a little bit of Swiss chocolate liqueur in there as well to create a chocolate Negroni. Cheers.
You can really taste the chocolate in that one, can't you? So good.
It's really cool when you're tasting wine or spirits or cocktails or anything that you keep tasting. So as you taste the cocktail, it might be really strong, really cold. It might be a big hit of alcohol. But then as you kind of breathe out and that finish is lingering, you get that really nice chocolate aftertaste. Yum. Does anyone have any questions about the little chocolate Negroni twist?
When would you usually drink a Negroni? Is it like a an aperitif? Is it a after dinner thing? When would you drink it?
It's a classic
Breakfast
aperitivo, yeah. So I mean, we drink it anytime really, but but it's a classic aperitivo cocktail. So like you drink these Italian bitter cocktails that are quite herbaceous are designed to stimulate saliva to kind of whet the palate or whet the appetite before a meal. I like to think that these a Negroni it's strong and it's sweet and it's quite bitter and herbaceous. So it's a great aperitivo. It stimulates appetite, but because it's so strong, it also stimulates conversation. And so you kind of really loosen up after a couple of Negronis, and it makes that dining experience a lot more interesting and quite fun. They're pretty dangerous. Someone just commented that's pretty punchy. Yeah, Negronis are really punchy But you know, like everyone gets stuck into them, and yeah, I've been known to drink them late at night or during the day or whenever really. But they're definitely designed to be drunk before a meal as a classic aperitivo.
There's another question here. Mick is a fan of the whiskey-based. Oh, I'm gonna say this completely wrong. Boulevardier. What's the Temple Street version?
That was pretty good. Boulevardier. Boulevardier is a great cocktail. Yeah, like that gentleman said, it's an American whiskey twist, almost a substitute. You could easily substitute it out. Yeah, we don't have one in the range right now, but yeah, I mean, we'll definitely do a Boulevardier at some stage, like really nice sweet bourbon, Campari, sweet vermouth, and probably add in another little modifier there. If you've got a suggestion, throw it in there and we'll do a little shout out for you on the bottle or something.
And Brian's just flagged another question as well. He said, do you think freshly made cocktails are still better, or does a well-made bottled cocktail with suitable garnish just as good these days?
Ooh, be careful how I answer this one.
Yeah, given he makes his living on on bars, but he's involved with the bottled cocktail project.
I don't know if I can. This is a good point to mention. We also own and operate a bar called 28 Hong Kong Street, which you should definitely go to soon after the 21st when restrictions are lifted, please. But you can't beat the experience of being in a bar. For us, it's not just what's in the glass, it's actually the whole experience. So, you know, the craft of the bartender is definitely important, but it's also the rapport that you can build with them. It's the service and the hospitality and the fact that you're made to feel welcome into this bar or restaurant or whatever. It's the music, it's the furniture, it's the food, it's the ambiance, it's all those other things. So short answer is you can't substitute that experience, but we're at a point now where we can take what's in the glass and we can have that at home too, no question. And it's just a different experience. Like I kind of half joke around putting one of these really beautiful, well-crafted cocktails into a plastic tumbler. I mean, that's just a different experience. It's just about convenience, and it's just about kind of having something different. You can also entertain at home, and hosting a dinner party with bottled cocktails is still beautiful craft culinary experience, but it's just different from being in a busy cocktail bar or a bustling restaurant and getting that hospitality. So they're both just completely different, but the commonality is just the cocktail. As you can tell, the Negroni starts to bring out the conversation a bit more.
Good answer, Dave.
Thanks.
We'll be talking by the end.
Yeah. Maybe that mute button's a good idea. Cool. Should I go on to the next one? Cool. So got the little gift pack here. I'm actually going to end on the espresso martini because it's got real coffee in there, of course. And so that tends to kind of like change your whole palate. So I'm going to leave the espresso martini at the end, but for the next one, I'm going to do the old fashioned. I've got my assistant here, my lovely assistant off camera, who's getting me a fresh glass and some ice. So yeah, we're going to do an old fashioned, another really popular cocktail, quite well known. Cocktails have become huge in the last 20 years. And as people's palates have become drier, bitter, more spirituous, the old fashioned and the Negroni have become really popular. The old fashioned is one of the origin cocktails. So there's two families of cocktails in the world which all other cocktails are spawned from. One is the sour family, daiquiris, margaritas, white ladies, bee's knees. And then we've got the old fashioned. And from that, you've got drinks similar to a martini or a Sazerac, whatever. The term old fashioned just comes from an old fashioned whiskey cocktail. And so if you think in the gold rush era, early to mid 1800s in the United States, people are ordering their whiskey, but then adding a little bit of sugar to it and a little bit of aromatic bitters because it might have been 9 o'clock in the morning, or they might have had to go out into the mines or go out and build a railroad or something like that. So they needed to soften their whiskey with a little bit of sugar and a little bit of aromatic bitters, which were traditionally drunk for indigestion or whatever. So that's where the old-fashioned whiskey cocktail came from. And then it obviously became super popular around the world. In the last 10 to 20 years, it's become much more popular with American whiskey. That's the original spirit that went into it. So a rye whiskey or a American bourbon, such as Michter's or Buffalo Trace or Maker's Mark or something like that. We at Temple Street, of course, want to do little twists on really kind of classic, well-known cocktails. And so we decided to do a rum old-fashioned, which is a really popular drink over the last probably 5 years. Products like Ron Zacapa, dark rum, Diplomatico, dark sweet rum, many other like premium rums have been really popular. So taking a dark sweet rum, adding some sweetness to it, a little bit of aromatic bitters, stirring it down, has become really popular. What do? Well, we take a Caribbean dark aged rum called Plantation Original Dark. It's got a blend of rums from Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados, aged between 2 and 10 years. And then we take some agave syrup that is made from the agave plant from Mexico. It's kind of like a honey or treacle-like substance. It's meant to be a lot better for you than sugar. But then we use some aromatic bitters. So we take some spice aromatic bitters like Angostura, which has a lot of baking spices characteristics to it. It's kind of like the salt and pepper of cocktails. You might have seen one of those bottles of Angostura with the oversized label. So these we consider the salt and pepper of cocktails. So a couple of dashes of that. And then a little not so secret sauce is hazelnut liqueur. So we add a little dash of really beautiful Italian hazelnut liqueur, which reminds me of Nutella when I drink that. So that's our twist. So now you can watch me make one.
Just a quick question while you're opening that from Krisha and Dave. I think that's the nicest Negroni I've ever had. That's nice. Always find others quite hardcore. Can I ask for a chocolate one in a bar? Smiley face emoji.
100%. Again, just like the bee's knees. If you went to a bar like 28 or Jigger and Pony or Sago House or any good bar that is renowned for their cocktails and ordered a chocolate Negroni, I think the bartender would respect that. And honestly, the bartender would put a little bit of extra love and care into that cocktail because you're someone who knows what they want and has a particular flavor in mind. So 100% bars can make it. Most good bars will have some kind of chocolate liqueur, or they'll have a chocolate bitters. So a few dashes of chocolate bitters will give it that accent. And thanks for the compliment. So again, we've got our old fashioned. I've actually put 2 of those little blocks into 1 glass. This is another orange peel twist as well. So again, I'm just going to express the oils over the top. In this case, the orange goes really well with dark rum, of course, agave, hazelnut, all flavors that work really well together. Give it a little twist, and then you can either rest it over the top, or for this particular cocktail, I'm just going to pop it in like so.
It's an interesting question around, can we buy these in bigger bottles? Is there a reason you chose the bottle size? Is it about having a single serve, or is it, could you get the family size? Trade up. It's only, of course.
Yes, it is a single serve to start off with, but we will soon be offering like a 500 ml bottle as well. And the other question as well of what quantities do you manufacture these in? We also, I think Jason and I were just talking about it before. I think we made about 20,000 cocktails this month, but we have capacity in our current facility to get up to about 50,000 units. But we've got a production facility out into us as well on the side of the brewery as well. So. And there's a couple of other questions saying, I agree, not normally a Negroni fan, but this is the best one I've had. Yay. And is the hazelnut liqueur you use Frangelico?
Good question. It's not Frangelico, but we like to think it's like the craft version of Frangelico. It's from a company called Luxardo. They're famous for making a cherry liqueur. So yeah, it's I hate to say the term, it's like the independent small batch boutique version of Frangelico. Threw in like 3 different cliches there at the same time. So yeah, cheers. Here's the old fashioned. Here's our you could call it a hazelnut spiced rum old fashioned. A little twist on the classic whiskey old fashioned. But yeah, using Caribbean rum, agave, hazelnut liqueur from Italy, a little orange twist over the top. It doesn't have the traditional bite that a whiskey old fashioned might have. If you've had an old fashioned with something like Michter's or Buffalo Trace or some of those spirits, whiskey just has more of a like cereal-like astringency and a bit of a bite. Whereas rum, particularly a dark aged rum from the Caribbean, it's made from sugar, it's aged in charred barrels, and so it does have an inherent sweetness. So I'd like to hear any feedback if anyone is a whiskey old fashioned fan and they love whiskey old fashions, a traditional one. Love to know people's feedback about this one being it's made with rum instead of whiskey. Or you can do it by way of emojis. Cool. All right, we're getting through these cocktails. This is rapid fire. I'll have to line them up and take a photo. Great. Should we go on to the next one? Cool. So espresso martini, hugely popular in New Zealand or Australia, where I'm from. Hasn't taken off as much in Singapore, surprisingly, but a huge popular cocktail globally. Just gone absolutely gangbusters. And it's crazy because I've joked about this, being a bartender and working not so much anymore, but spending 15 years behind the bar and in the last 20 years, you see people drinking a lot of espresso martinis, particularly when I was back in Oz, and really high quality coffee culture, just like New Zealand. And you'll have people come in and I'll drink like 5 espresso martinis in a night, and that's like, it's like a third of a bottle of vodka, a cup of sugar, and 5 shots of espresso. That's crazy.
Don't judge.
I'm not judging. I'm one of those people. But when you see people when they first enter the venue and when they leave, you're like, wow, that person's absolutely wired. But we love espresso martinis. It's taken off. Got a delivery coming. I'm not sure if you've heard that knock, but the joys of doing virtual cocktail classes from your dining table. The espresso martini's got
this month, haven't we?
Yeah.
A couple of people made comments that the old fashioned smells like bananas.
Oh, cool.
I actually get that now.
Now we're all smelling it.
Yeah. There you go. A lot of tropical fruits, that oak characteristic, caramel, butterscotch that comes from the rum and the hazelnut. Love it. The last cocktail, the espresso martini, has a really fun story behind it. There's a really well-known bartender called Dick Bradsell. He actually invented the treacle, which is a rum old fashioned. He created a bunch of like obscure classic cocktails, but this is his claim to fame. This is his what we call a modern classic cocktail. A classic cocktail is like a Negroni or an old fashioned. A modern classic is something that's been created in maybe like the last 20, 30 or 40 years, like maybe a Long Island iced tea or a blue Hawaii or something like that. The espresso martini was created in the late 80s by this influential bartender called Dick Bradsell. And the story goes that he created it for a supermodel. Some people say Naomi Campbell, a young Naomi Campbell, when she was doing a shoot, and she came up to the bar and she said, I need something to wake me up and then fuck me up. Excuse my language, but that's how the story goes. And so he turned around and he had nothing, he didn't know what to do. So he thought she needs caffeine and she needs alcohol. So he turned around, saw his coffee machine, made a few shots of coffee, added it to some vodka, added a little bit of sugar to balance it out, shook it up, and then served it over ice. And he called it a pharmaceutical stimulant. And this is going to, have the desired effect. And that evolved over time to become the espresso martini. In the 90s, there was all kinds of martinis, apple martinis, pineapple martinis, watermelon martinis, et cetera, et cetera. And the espresso martini was one of those. Chocolate martini was also really popular. So the espresso martini just became this like cheesy cocktail. But then in the 2000s, particularly like the 2010s, it became hugely popular because coffee culture really took off as well. So people got a real taste for good quality coffee and just the flavor of good coffee. So the espresso martini blew up in the UK and particularly blew up in Australia and New Zealand. I'm not sure about New Zealand as much, but I know in Australia, for example, they've got an espresso martini festival, and it's the biggest selling cocktail in Australia at the moment. Overtook the mojito. The mojito was the biggest selling cocktail for a very long time in Australia, but the espresso martini really took over. So this is our espresso martini. We use a vodka base. We use a French winter wheat vodka, non-GMO vodka called Tried and True. It's 44%. Most vodkas are at 40%, whether it's something cheaper like Smirnoff or more expensive like Grey Goose, they're at 40%. We have a vodka that we use for the Temple Street Espresso Martini, which is 44%. That 4% really makes a difference in a cocktail. We use really good coffee from Allpress, really robust but balanced coffee. Then we also use a spiced agave. So again, we use agave as a sweetening agent, but then we put some baking spices and some brown sugar into it. And then we use a really nice, again, Italian coffee liqueur. So think Kahlua, think Patron Exo Cafe, but the really nice Italian version of it. So with this one too, you have the option. We do pre-dilute it a little bit, but you do have the option to actually whack it into a shaker and shake it with some ice to really get that crema going. Or you can just give it a good shake in the bottle and pour it right out like this. There's definitely a chance of this exploding everywhere.
Fully shaken up, it gives it that nice cream line going across, like as if it was made fresh as well. It's really cool.
Yeah. That's important to note. If you do just whack it into a cocktail shaker or a your protein shaker or your juicer or something at home and give it a quick shake with some ice from the fridge, not too much, you'll get that crema and that nice line across the top, and then pop 3 coffee beans over the top, and that's pretty much a perfect espresso martini. So our little twist is the agave syrup. But yeah, that's our Temple Street Espresso Martini.
So Pam asked just before as well why we don't do a gin-based dirty martini. Great question, Pam.
Did you plan that question, Joe?
No, I did not.
It's been a big topic of conversation. There's been quite a few tests around that particular cocktail. Yeah, I think we will one day for sure. Don't know when. Maybe we'll expedite that now that we've had another query. But here's a question. Our plan was to do a pickle martini. So a traditional dirty martini is with the olive brine from a jar of olives. So we had the idea to use some of the brining liquid from pickling. So all the stuff from the pickles. Is that a no?
It actually tasted great fresh, but the problem was
Yes.
in the in the bottle on the shelf, all the shelf life testing, it kind of reacted over time, so it turned more and more into vinegar as time went on.
But someone mentioned a Gibson, and it actually had a Gibson-like quality. Like it had that salty umami character with a bit of liquor vinegar. I loved it. But I'm also not a massive fan of the traditional dirty martini.
Can you do any cocktail mixes that need to have something bubbly added? I love a French 75, or is that too plain to do?
It's not plain. It's a very classy cocktail. But we haven't played around too much with carbonation, particularly doing a carbonation that has a sparkling wine added to it as well. There's a great bar in the UK that do a large format, like champagne bottle French 75, but that goes through a secondary fermentation in the bottle, and actually it creates its own bubbles in the bottle. It's super cool. But doing a French 75 in the Temple Street format would be quite challenging. But what we could do is, a bee's knees, you pour that out into your cocktail glass. Got a little friend here. Oh, I'm gonna take them in. And then just charge it with champagne. So the bee's knees, honey, gin, lavender, citrus, and then just do a little charge of champagne over the top. You've got like a better French 75 than you'll get in most bars for sure. So bee's knees, French 75, there's the tip.
And do you want to just quickly talk through maybe the garden party and the? We don't need to do full tasting because I think everyone might be smashed if they have 6 drinks in 18 minutes, but just mention them.
Cool. So the garden party is our I guess homage to the lychee martini or an apple martini. There's a garden party style of drink, which is something usually with elderflower or mint or soft herbs such as that with some lychee and that kind of stuff. So our iteration or our little twist on that is with the tried and true vodka, French vodka. We use a little bit of peach liqueur. So we use a really beautiful French peach liqueur from Dijon, where they're famous for making liqueurs. We use a Bianco vermouth, so Italian medium sweet vermouth, so very aromatic, very floral. Then we use some lychee and some grapefruit oil as well. So we've got a nice balance of really tropical confectionery fruits, some soft herbs, and liquor. So it creates like this really nice semi-sweet kind of floral aromatic cocktail called the Garden Party. Again, it's similar to a Negroni. You can pour it over ice or keep it in the freezer and then just pour it out straight into a stem cocktail glass. And then the little twist or the little treat that hasn't been released yet, which actually Joe's releasing tomorrow, is an old classic that people might have had good or bad memories of, called a twist on the Long Island iced tea, which we've called the straight iced tea, which is a blend of London dry gin, white rum. We use a Caribbean white rum. It's a blend of 3 different rums that have been aged but then filtered out. So it's like a more flavoursome Bacardi, really sweet white rum. London dry gin, some triple sec, so an orange liqueur similar to Cointreau. So it's kind of sweet, it's aromatic, 3 kinds of liquor. Then we use a peach tea and a dash of lemon juice. So we have a little straights iced tea. It's a sneak preview for everyone here. This doesn't get launched until the weekend. This one here, you just put straight over ice. So give it a good shake and then just pour it straight over ice and you're done. The garnish for this would typically be a lemon wedge and a cherry if you're in a bar, but it's a Long Island, so you can put a bit of mint over the top or something like that.
Nice one. Yes, that's rolling out tomorrow. That'll be available from tomorrow morning, basically. I now have to update the website tonight after all these drinks. So wonderful. Hopefully it'll be on tomorrow morning anyway.
And how often are you going to bring out new lines or flavors or variants?
So there's 2 sides. There's actually 3 sides. There's one is the core range that you see today, and we hope to be able to I mean, we accelerated launching some new ones just because of phase 2 as well. We thought this was a good opportunity to push things out while there was a little bit more of a captive audience, and we still plan to sort of continue to develop new products and introduce them as well. But then beyond that as well, we also have up our sleeves as well. We'd eventually like to do more of a subscriptions-based service as well, and do some more unique ones and partner with some of the top bars around Singapore, and actually have some unique cocktails that will only be available, and showcasing the mixologists behind them, what they've done. They can choose 4 of their favorite, and then we'll work with them to develop it, and then it will only be available for a limited time and have that sort of rolling out. So there's a lot of things that need to kind of come together to make that happen, but that's kind of what I think that would be really fun and hopefully well received. And then on the other side of that as well, we're also actively doing stuff with F&B on a regular basis as well. So we're, we just did with Super Loco, we've developed some unique ones with them. Well, unique, it's their own stuff. We just needed to work with them to make it shelf stable, capable of being, bottled and able to be sold and things like that as well. So there'll be kind of other partnerships as well as we go along.
Oh, and Nick's saying you've solved a difficult birthday gift problem for him. So good one, Nick.
We'll have some. Hopefully, we'll have some really nice gift packs coming out in the next week or 2 as well. So the boxes are nice. We're really proud of them. They just came out this week, actually. But we've got some nice actual proper gift packs arriving in a couple of weeks as well. Like, good for gifting.
Love it. So what we might do now, we've obviously tried 4 cocktails. If anyone's got any questions, we'll unmute you all and let you answer, ask any questions that you've got in your voices, if you like. But I guess maybe just put up a hand or something so we're not all talking at once. Monica, are you the chief of the unmuting? Cool. So I think now you can, if you've got a question, you can unmute yourself and ask away, or even if you just want to say something.
I have a question. I'd like to say that was amazing. The cocktails are beautiful, really, really nice. But what's happened to your cider?
Yeah, that's the bane of my life, actually.
Oh my God, I'm so sad. I check all the time.
So we actually got shut down last year from making it. Government customs changed their ruling on producing cider and seltzer. And even though we fermented in the same tanks that we make the beer in, they've made us get a distillery license to make it, and the distillery license is like a year-long process. So
oh my gosh,
we've literally just spent a couple $100,000, and it's been an entire year of going through paperwork hell. But the good news is we're hopefully about a month away from getting that approval. So. And then after that, we'll actually have a distillery license anyway. So then we may as well get a still and make some spirits as well. Yeah. We've already done the hard work for getting the license. It's actually mind-boggling because it means we've, based on the current setup, because you're fermenting it the same way as beer, right? Same for the seltzer.
Yes.
It means it's literally like there's just a line on the floor, like there's some tape on the floor that demarcates 4 tanks. And that's a distillery, and that's what's cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. Wow. We've had to put deposits down, whole new processes. We've had multiple inspections to get this thing over the line, and it's literally so that we can brew it exactly the same way we were before. Actually, I mean, when I say they clarified the rules, it meant that they shouldn't have approved us in the first place. So they actually made us back pay also 2.5 years of extra tax on it. So it's also taxed at a higher rate now and all that sort of thing. So yeah, there was a nice thing to get, like first week out of circuit breaker last year was a customs inspection and a change of their
So you were
rulings on
able
that.
to sell everything you had produced, but just couldn't produce anymore.
Well, actually, they told us that we weren't allowed to make any more as of tomorrow. And then, so I quickly, while I was still in the meeting, and I messaged the guys out of the brewery and got them to put on about 10,000 more litres that day. But we mostly just sold it to trade, just because we have supply contracts in place that we couldn't risk breaching. So we've just been whittling down on the stock. So hopefully we'll be back up again in the next month or two. Yeah.
Exciting.
Exciting,
Yes,
frustrating.
Yeah, you had it in Shake Shack, right? I remember seeing it on tap there.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. That's why we kept those contracts in place, because it's critical for the entire rest of the portfolio being there as well. So, so we've just basically kept it. Same with the seltzer as well. We're just about to launch our seltzer, made with organic Blue Weber agave. It's delicious, nice and dry, super. Well, I was going to say super healthy. It's not healthy. It's alcoholic still. It's low calories anyway. About to launch it, and again, we've it's pushed it all back a year, but we did manage to get off a few thousand liters of that, and it is available in a couple of places. But yeah, not until we can't launch it properly until we've got it up and running properly.
Joseph, it's Kelly here. So online tomorrow to get the full range, including the new one and the discount. Are you doing beer and cocktail packages? Can you kind of combine your orders and get both, or are they distinct brands at the moment?
Yeah, I on the Trouble Brewing website, yes. Temple Street, no, but I think I can set up the same code for Trouble Brewing as well. But there's actually a 20% off a pick. You can completely build your own bundle on so you can build your own pack of cocktails, 12-pack, and you can build your own case of beer on as well. And there's 20% off that at the moment on Trouble Brewing website.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now with my 5 people as of Monday.
There you go.
Thank you.
It's good. We were hoping it was a good party pack, and then when it was, they said that F&B was pushed back another week as well. Yeah.
Have you thought about or planning to do any sort of low alcohol or no alcohol options, which is obviously very trendy right now? Not in this house, but other people's houses.
Yeah, that's something that's been flagged a bit, but nothing. Making no alcohol beer is actually harder than making it with alcohol, because you've actually got to make it with beer and then you extract the alcohol. So we definitely won't do any. We won't do any. What I don't want to do is create like our core products and then make them alcohol-free versions. But towards the end of this year, we will actually have we're aiming for like a healthier soda, sugar-free soda replacement beverage that we're looking to launch. So there'll be a whole new brand that we'll be rolling out, and that'll be like it's kind of sparkling sort of tea sort of thing that will be out there, and aiming to position it same sort of level for cafes, but half the price point of like a kombucha sort of level as well. So we're hoping to get that out by the end of this year as well. Just a few things to sort out first, like how to make it in space. And Nick just wrote as well, can you do a low calorie, no sugar tonic? We have Cappy on the website at the moment. I think they have you might know better than me, Jason, but don't they? I think they have a couple of sugar-free options in there as well.
Yeah, they've got low sugar, low calorie, and some of the bigger craft tonic brands do have that option. Like Fever Tree have a low sugar version as well, but tonic water notoriously has a lot of sugar, so even the low sugar version is going to have some sugar.
Cool.
Oh, we can't hear you, Brian. You're asking a question. We can't hear you. I don't know why.
That was amazing, guys. Thank you very much. You've made our Thursday evening into a Friday. Love it.
Good luck tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh boy. Brian, did you have a question? Sorry, I think you were trying to mic issue. Okay. Feel free to email anything and we can pass on to Joe and get it back to you, or to Jason and get it back to you. I guess that kind of brings us to the end of our hour. And if you're anything like me, you've got a few drunken cocktails, which you'll go and finish now. But I just want to say thank you so much, Joe, and thanks, Jason, for your expertise tonight and talking us through them. I really didn't know what to expect, but they're delicious. I think that Negroni, I'll be going back for more. So yeah, thanks so much. And yeah, do let us know when you come up with new flavors. And also we will send everyone that code so you can get your discount, your New Zealand Chamber discount at Temple Street, or go to go to troublebrewing.com.sg. Go there and you can bundle your beers and your Temple Street cocktails.
Good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks
Sam.
very much for having us.
And and also go to 28 Hong Kong Street once they're allowed to open again.
Once yeah, cocktails at home are great, but also don't forget to get out and support bars and restaurants once they open.
Yeah. We'll see you there, Jason.
Yeah, I'll be at the bar. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joe and
Thanks,
Jason.
guys.
That was,
Thanks everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys. It was really cool.
yeah, that was wonderful. Thank
Glad
you.
you enjoyed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.